Welcome back to Champ Talk with Branden Hudson. We're glad to have you back. As we always do, it's a beautiful week, beautiful day. It's a beautiful life that we're living, and I'm just happy that you're here enjoying it with me, listening to my nonsense and my craziness that I talk constantly, and just vibing, man. I appreciate it. This episode is brought to you by Pohanka of Salisbury. Holler at Pohanka for all your automotive needs. Pohanka's been a supporter of SBY MMA and Fitness and my brand and this podcast and many other things all across the Eastern Shore, man. They have just been the leader in philanthropy, and we're great to be aligned with them, and thank you. So shout out to them. They've got multiple car stores that you can purchase your vehicle from, multiple brands. They can get them from anywhere. So big thank you to them. And like we always ask you, I ask it, if you get value out of this or you know somebody that would, please like and subscribe. Send it to them. Please go to all of our platforms or whatever platform you're listening or watching, and give us a like, a thumbs up, something like that, man, so that we can, just be more visible to you guys and be viewed more and listen more and so forth. So, our reach is getting to be, it's growing steadily because of you guys. You're making this a really great and magnetic podcast. So I love that. And again, we do all of our stuff for free. We just, got to cover the cost to pay my gimp in the box, and that's about it. So, and time in the box. So, but we had a guest supposedly scheduled today, but unfortunately they had some not emergencies, but some reasons they couldn't show up. So it was kind of sprung on them. So you got me today, another solo podcast, and I don't have anything to talk about today, oddly enough. So that's a hell of a way to start a podcast, right? To say, what is he going to talk about? Nothing. But I've got a little something I'm going to share with you guys and get a little personal with you, a little vulnerable with you, and just kind of give you some X's and O's on how to capitalize on things that maybe you're struggling with or going through, and maybe if you want to change. So without further ado, let's get right at it. I wanted to talk about today, that pull that you have, that internal pull that you have when you're just ready to be doing something else with your life. You know what I mean? Not necessarily, this great big change or this, just something. There's something in your heart saying, I'm meant to do something differently. It could be this job, it could be this relationship, it could be the way that you look or feel. It could be so many different things. So it's not limited to one thing. For me, right, I had this feeling when I was working at this body shop. I worked at this really good body shop. I learned a lot about business, learned a lot about myself. And I didn't do any of the body work. I was just the guy who was the estimator, customer service rep that I started off in the beginning. And then as I grew up the ranks, in 5 to 7 years, I became the number two. I was the man who basically, if you know anything about that industry, you get into a car wreck, you come in, I'm the one that writes the estimate for the car, tells you how much the repairs are going to be, and then you submit that to your insurance company most of the time. And I work with the insurance company because they don't want to pay as much as we want to charge, and there's a balancing act there. And then I also work with the body shop technicians to make sure that they're happy because they get paid kind of like flat rate, it's called. So basically, if it takes 8 hours to do a job and they get it done in 4, they keep the rest. That's where most common practices are here in Maryland and Delaware. And then also I got to make the company money. So there's like this weird balancing act that I was in, and I loved it. I started off before that to get my foot in the door. I was an appraiser. Worked for an independent insurance or independent appraising company, and they worked for multiple different insurance companies that we would get contracted out to go and be the adjuster, the liaison in between. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. Knew nothing about the industry, and before that, and we're talking about like 18 to 21, 22 years old. This is around this time. Before that, I did a bunch of construction jobs. And did I did a little bit of everything. Never learned a trade. I was a laborer or helper in all of these positions. I worked at Food Line when I was 16 for my first job. I did a bunch of odd jobs with my uncles, a couple with my dad. Then I worked at the airport for a little while, cleaning airplanes. But then it was basically after that just construction. And I always felt like in construction that was not going to be for me. I admire, and hats off to anybody that can learn a skill like that and be able to build something. I am not the guy that can look into a room and see a blank room and just envision how the walls are going to come up in the trim and the carpet and all that. That's not my talent. That's not my stroke of genius. I am the guy that you know, can get in here and say, oh, let's put this here, there, put that there, and move on. But I felt like that there was just this internal journey way back when I was a young man, or internal pull way back when I was a young man to say, nah, I'm not going to be, you know, doing construction. For me, it always felt like, and it's because I never stuck with it, to be honest with you, but I just didn't connect with that kind of work. And it always felt like there was not enough of me that was ever good enough. It was always how much you could squeeze physically the juice out of me. And it just didn't work for me. And hats off to everybody. My dad was a brick mason for 25 years. All my uncles owned construction companies or worked as construction carpenters or something like that. So that field just wasn't for me. So that's when I had the pull, and I would decide I was going to go sell cars and get a professional job, you know. And I went to a local dealership to try to get my first suit and tie job, and you know how that went down. You know, that kind of put me in the door for doing more professional type of jobs. You know, stuff that where, you know, I'm not wearing jeans and, you know, tank tops. I'm coming in and, you know, looking the part. And again, this isn't saying anything against any industry. I'm just saying what was working for me. What wasn't working for me is where I wanted. So fast forward back to the body shop, you know what I mean? I was making pretty good money. The job was not very laborious. It was, you know, it was a job. You got to work, got to show up. You know, I learned a lot about business from you know, that my mentor at that time, you know, Matt Miller. Matt Miller was the gentleman I worked for. He's Tertiary Miller's Body Shop. I'm gonna give him a shameless plug because, you know, they do good work. I believe in the work, and I believe in Matt, and I'm very grateful of Matt and for all the things that he had done for me that I didn't realize he was doing. You know what I mean? And that goes to another story. We'll get there later. But anyhow, but I just remember, you know, looking outside of my of the door at a field, basically, you know, in the back of a building, just having this internal dialogue with myself about, this can't be it. This can't be my life. And again, there was nothing wrong with the business. I just had in my heart meant that I was due for something else, right? There was something that I was meant to be doing, and I could not, for the life of me, figure it out. And it's funny, everybody's like waiting for these signs, right? Everybody's waiting for these signs. The signs were all over and very clear and apparent. I just chose not to acknowledge them because I was waiting for some magical, you know, sky opening, talk down upon the type of experience. And that's just not realistic. That's not something that's going to happen. And the cool part about this, and again, you know, I'm giving you guys some context because I definitely got a point, and I'm gonna wrap it up, I promise you. But I'm giving you some context. The cool thing about this, right, was I was in the streets heavy. You know what I mean? And, you know, it was an interesting thing. Back up just a little bit before I started that body shop job, I'd found myself basically with all this money, and I couldn't spend it, right? Just for, you know, all argument purposes. You know, there's laws and there's certain there's certain things that prevent illegal criminals to be able to spend money and cash money. You get flagged. And once the FBI gets, you know, hold of it, then you get investigated, and you just, you know, most criminals know this, right? And I'm not advocating for that life, so please don't mistake that. But I was, you know, doing very well in that business, and I was knee deep in the streets, knee deep in the game, and you know, I couldn't spend the money nowhere. I had all this cash, but you know, you can only buy but so many fucking cars and sneakers and jewelry and nights out and all that shit, right? That shit don't bring you a return. So I also rented my house, and I think personally that you should own a house. I think every person, if it makes sense for your situation, should own a piece of property. I think it's a great way to not waste rent. If you're like a Rolling Stone and you don't plan to be there that long and all that, that's a whole different conversation, right? I know like there's a lot of people that, you know, say you should pay cash for a house, and everybody's got their own philosophy. Me personally, you know, we come from very humble beginnings. No one in my house, in my family owned a home. I wanted to be an own homeowner, you know, and I didn't want to keep throwing money towards a rent. And I thought a home was an investment. It is, but it isn't. We can go down that rabbit hole on another podcast. It all depends on how you work it out. But for me, I needed a place to raise my daughters. I needed a place to be with my wife, my ex-wife at the time, and or my wife at the time, excuse me. And I wanted a home. I didn't want to throw money away. And I also was tired of moving all the time and I just wanted to settle down. But you got to have credit. You got to have a certain amount of cash. And obviously, I didn't have any of that being a drug dealer. So I was finding myself trying to figure out ways and things to do in that time frame of, getting on the books. I really had no intentions of stopping. Just that wasn't a reality then, as far as selling drugs. But I at least wanted to start like kind of, doing what normal people do and owning a home and raising your family right and things like that. And I just was clueless about what to do. And I tried to apply a couple of jobs, not very hard, but I relied on the drug money. I even went back to school and went to the community found out I got put on probation for that, academic probation, because I didn't even know how to do school. Because when I did it when I was 18, I fucking failed miserably. Not failed, but just didn't show up. So yeah, I guess I did fail. But yeah, so I had that, and then I remember walking out of admissions. I hadn't heard nothing back. It was in between semesters. I walked out of admissions because I went in there to say what was up with the next semester, and they literally told me I was on academic suspension because I had dropped too many classes and didn't show up for others and all that. And it just, I didn't do a good job. And I felt so defeated. And to add insult to injury, rain was coming down on me in the parking lot, right? So I'm like walking out of here, trying to change my life, trying to do right, got kids, all these things. And I'm, you can't even go to college, you dumb fuck. And that's when I got the call from Matt, and he called me. And wanted to give me an interview at the body shop. And again, when I went in there and I got the job, I said, and this is why I brought all this up, my intention was in 5 years, I'm going to purchase a house. I understood it was going to take a little bit of time to clean up some debt, to build credit. I knew the hoops and how to do it. I had a very generic understanding of it. And in 5 years, I'm going to purchase a house. And in that moment, 5 years later, right, to the T, I actually purchased a house. And I say that because it's incredible when you put and I didn't even know anything about mindfulness or discipline and all that at this point, but it was just one example to me that if I put my mind to something, I could achieve it. And I achieved it to the almost the actual date, not just the month, almost the hiring date. When I said that out loud and intention, I made that happen. And that was a big deal for us. Cause again, we grew up in a trailer park, Section 8 house, and we grew up in, we didn't have a whole lot going on financially for my family. So to be able to do that. And the even cooler part about all that was I started off as a customer service rep, and after a couple of years got a raise, but it wasn't a lot of money. And this is also 15 years ago. So we're talking, no, I think it's longer than that. Yeah, roughly 15, 16 years ago. So minimum wage was way lower, the cost of living was way lower, the Eastern Shore of Maryland was way different than what it would look like in other metropolitans, other areas. But then I had to get smart, and I was like, look, I know what my value is here. I've been here for 4 years. I know that my position in other places are almost double my salary. Maybe I need to entertain that idea and talk to my boss about asking for a $8 an hour raise. Right? Yes, I said it, $8 an hour. Now, obviously, I was doing some negotiation, and I hope this isn't too much information. You know what I mean? Again, this was back then, and I'm going to get to another part of this story that's going to hopefully make up for what I'm talking about. But my point was, I did my market area research, found out what I was being paid, what others were being paid to do my job at other places. But I love the company. I believed in the company so much, and loved Matt so much, and what he'd done for me. I figured, why not start with him? You know what I mean? It's a great place to work. Why not? So anyway, we came to an agreement. He gave me a $5 an hour raise. Like this was back in 2000 and I think 2009, something like that. So unheard of. But he believed in me enough to give me that. And that's a crazy amount of jump. So why I bring all that up was because basically, the loan approval amount, what I was in, I wasn't going to buy a house in the hood. That just wasn't going to happen. You know what I mean? I would have waited and done something differently than sit here and bought that kind of house. And been in that neighborhood. Plus, the lifestyle I was living was so dangerous, I couldn't really be in that spot. You know what I mean? Or obviously, some bad things would happen, and I couldn't put my family at risk. But when I got that $5 an hour raise, that jumped me up $10,000 a year. And then next thing you know, I'm able to get a house that I really wanted to afford. So anyway, all of that was a great accomplishment, was a great mental discipline, focus, intentionality. There were so many things that people talk about so much now about with mindfulness practice and with, what you're trying to do to go out here and be an entrepreneur that I was doing at a very generic baseline understanding of it. I just have this inner drive in me that was like, look, I got to do this and we'll figure it out. And I didn't know that, I didn't understand the laws of attraction. I didn't understand any of that shit. I was completely, I was a drug dealer, I was out here in the streets. I was a thug, so that's what that was where my world was. And those rules are a little bit different than how you live and manage in the real world. So I had all these great things that I accomplished in these time frames, but I'm still selling drugs on the low and hiding that from everybody. I'm still, doing all these horrible things, you know what I mean, as far as, my lifestyle and the rules of the game and all these things. And I'm just looking outside of the window and just thinking like, I don't even need this job. I really don't need this job. I'm working at this job because I believe that it's setting me up and pushing me to be something successful. I know I need to work, but I don't really want to sell drugs anymore. I'd met a woman, my wife and I had split up, and I met a woman, and me and her had fallen in love. And that was kind of an example of like being an authentic man and a boyfriend and so forth. You know what I mean? Like, instead of being out here and thinking you're a fucking rapper or some shit like that, going out here, banging as many chicks as you possibly can while you're married, like stupid shit, embarrassing shit, stuff that I wish I could take back. And that I can't, because obviously that's where I was at. But anyway, and I just was looking outside the door window every single day, waiting for this sign to be apparent to show me, hey, you can do something different. I had started my mixed martial arts career during that time frame. So, this was in the early days, and you can check out some of my fights on there and how bad they were and how bad I was. But this was in the early days. So why do I bring all that up? I didn't realize I was pushing myself into these certain changes that I was pushing myself in as far as personal development goes, just by showing up and doing things. For instance, I started working out and I started pushing myself, right? Physically. I was like 223 pounds with no muscle tone. I saw my wedding video back then, and that's when it dawned on me I was a big guy. I was a fat guy. I was like, Jesus, why nobody tell me? Excuse me. I think they did try to tell me, but I didn't, I wasn't trying to hear it or wasn't trying to listen either way. But yeah, so I started my mixed martial arts journey, which I didn't do it to fight or compete. I just did it just to get in the cage just to get in shape. And the guy I was training with was like, hooking me up with $10 training sessions and things like that. I'm like, oh, no problem. And I just fell in love with the sport. And then as that transpired, I cut some more cancer out of my life with how I was behaving as a father figure and a boyfriend / husband. My ex-wife and I decided to split up, and we remain in good terms. We just had Mother's Day yesterday. She celebrated with me and my daughters, my current wife now. So we're all on good terms. You know what I mean? It's been a great ride with her for 25 years. I've known her since I was 13 years old. So we've got a lot of history. She's family. But we just can't be together. We couldn't be together. And we decided that then. And I fell in love with this other girl, and we had a great thing. And I wasn't cheating on her, and I wasn't running the streets, and I wasn't trying to be the guy and all that, which I know is so cringy when I say it out loud. And I know what I'm saying is fucking like, oh, duh, you're not supposed to do that. But again, different world, different lifestyle. I'm not the man that I am. I wasn't the man I am today. And I had to learn, obviously, the hard way on becoming that. But those were a couple of things that I was starting to put into practice, not realizing that I was actually personally developing as a person. And then where I had been with the company so long and out of the streets all day, just only all night, that kind of moved me out of a position in that role where, look, if your ear ain't to the streets, you can't be that, you can't walk all these different lives. And I was living different lives. I was living 6 different lives, dude. At one point, I was a big time drug dealer, a local MMA fighter, a body shop manager, a husband, a father, you know what I mean? And I'm out here running, women and shit like that. I mean, it was insane. And I thought all this was normal. I thought this was like a way that's just what people do. Like I'm some fucking double agent, secret spy guy, and that's just how I act. And then, come to find out, later on in life, I learned how much damage and how much trauma I was creating and bringing myself and bringing my life because of all this, because of the ways I was living. But anyway, as I was cutting the streets out more, and I wanted to get out of that, and I was cutting, the fuckery of being, a cheater and all these, disrespectful things, and then, I was finding, a inner joy of training and competing and all these things, man. It just, there was something that was pulling me, and I was really good at my job. So there was something that was pulling me. I was like, I know that I'm more talented to do something else, right? So, before I go any further, a couple of notes to take and lessons to take is, look, the first thing is you got to get your body in shape. You got to get in shape. You got to start working out, you know what I mean? And moving your body to some degree. I don't know if you have to, I always recommend combat sports. I think it's a great thing for the physical and mental. But you don't have to do that. I always, then you got to get the bullshit that you're doing in your life. You know what I mean? If you're, if you're not living right, it's going to catch up with you. It's going to have an adverse effect on you some way, shape, or form. If you're out here, running women or ripping people off or, you know, drinking every night, you know what I mean, partying all the time, you know, all these things, right? You may not see it directly, but indirectly, it's going to have an effect on you. It's just, there's no way around it. And I'm not saying that these things are, I'm not saying like partying and drinking and all that stuff. I'm not saying you live your life how you want to do it. I'm just saying that when you make that a lot of your focus and a lot of your central parts of your life, you're going to have a negative effect in some way, shape, or form that you may not see until, it pops up. And that certainly had that on me. That's why I've limited on, I don't drink as much as I used to. I still drink. I have no problem with drinking, but I don't need to drink every weekend. I don't need to drink all the time. I don't need to drink to get fucked up. It's me. I love the social aspect of just bouncing around and talking to people. And a lot of times drinking's involved when you do that. But that's not something that's a staple in my life. So you cut the fuckery out. You start moving your body. You start putting intentions out with goals and with things that you want to do. And then, and then here's the part. Here's the climax of it. The part that really gets you is you got to take action, even if you don't know what that looks like. And when we hear take action, we don't understand what that looks like because most of the time, taking action seems to be like, oh, well, go do this specifically. Well, we don't know what specifically is, right? So we're like, well, what action do I take? Where do I go? Where do I start? What do I do? And I think for me was, I had to take action to quit selling drugs. I think that would have been a really good play for me if I'd have just cut it out. Cold turkey, I'm done. No more smoking it, no more selling them. I'm out. And that's the sign that I was not listening to and not obeying by. And gosh, there were so many signs in the course of, me being shown that wasn't the life. You know what I mean? Friends murdered and tortured, left dead, not talking to people over $50 to $100, jail, you know what I mean? Getting in trouble. Like that should have been a clear cut, being set up. I mean, there's so many things, dude. Like, gosh, man, I remember I was my little whore ass back in the day got set up by these girls one time, pulled this girl after the bar. And, I was a easy target, pulled her. She wanted to, get a room. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not proud of these moments, but I'm going to share them with you because I'm not the only motherfucker listening to this that's been through some shit and done some shit. And if I can share my embarrassing moments and the shit that I've done to help you prevent them, then I don't give a fuck about being vulnerable. It is embarrassing, and I cringe when I speak about it, especially where I'm at now. But I think it's very important that people hear about it. I pulled this girl, went out of this bar, you know what I mean? And, some way, shape, or form, I was the handsome chap that she liked and wanted to be with. And, that night out of all these other handsome chaps. And, obviously you can see I'm not the most handsomest guy. Okay. I got a great personality, but looks did not come around my way in favor. Anyway, long story short, there was a competitor who had sent her my way. They tried to set me up and we go to this hotel and it just was awkward and weird stuff like that. And then I get a knock on the door. So, and I didn't have my gun with me at the time. You know what I mean? I was naked, so to speak, not physically, but you know what I mean? And, I just reacted the best way I could. And, I just opened the door really aggressive and You know what I mean? Just met it head on, and I don't know why these guys didn't jump me or do anything, but I assume they didn't know. I assume that they saw who I was and knew who I was connected with and knew my reputation, and maybe got caught off guard because of how aggressive I was, because that was the only play I had, and they were asked for the girl, and she walked out and they left. It was the craziest fucking story, craziest night, and definitely sat down and like, what the fuck did I just get myself into? But it was like you would thought that kind of sign would have told me, hey, maybe it's time to cut the game off and stop messing around. But I didn't. And so as I am looking around for all these signs, I'm still doing the same shit, being the same person. You know, I decided to quit fighting. I think it was 7 fights my 7th fight I got hurt. And I was just like, you know, this isn't why I should be fighting anymore. It's taking too much of my time, too much of my effort. I didn't really commit to the development of training. I only committed to camps, and I'd be on and hot and cold, you know what I mean? Disappear for a few months, come back ready to train for a camp, and smoking weed, drinking. I'm in love. I got all these things going my way, and my ego was through the motherfucking roof, dog. I mean, I just thought I was, you know what I mean, just doing it. And we got to the 7-year mark and 7.5-year mark, and I leave on lunch break to go get lunch and obviously make a couple plays, and don't come back to my job. Basically get locked up, and the police were following the guy that I was working with, and at that point they got me and got locked up. I got back out that afternoon, which was wild in itself. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But I got out that afternoon and called my boss, told him what was up. He asked, and when I told him what happened, man, you could just hear his fucking heart hit the ground. Mind you, my guy was, my boss was connected really well with the sheriff department, the state police. I mean, I'd shake hands with the sheriff and, the sheriff, you know what I mean? And talk to him and take care of their accounts and all these things. And meanwhile, I'm out here fucking, behind closed doors doing my dirt. And, Matt's a very God-fearing man, Christian man, you know what I mean? So, and I've been in his home. I mean, this is a guy that I was very close to, looked up to, very close to. And, he had to hear that his number 2 guy at his business that with the account sat here and, got in trouble. And he fired me, rightfully so, you know what I mean? And there was my fucking spiral out of control moment. And I ended up, going to jail, the story and all that good stuff. But that was probably my sign avoidance lesson, you know what I mean, where I avoided all these signs and all these things. I'm like, where's the sign? Well, the sign was right in front of me the whole fucking time, and I had all these things that I was doing, and then boom. And the odd part is I quit fighting, so I quit training, right? So I wasn't in shape anymore. I started gaining weight. I started, I was just starting to settle with a mediocre life, and I was in love with this girl, and I believe that she was in love with me, and I thought that we had a great thing. But at the same time, she was a young girl. I was a divorcee, fresh out of a marriage. It was a forbidden marriage or forbidden relationship anyway. How really deep was the substance for real? You know what I mean? How really deep was her and I relationship when you look at it from what it is now? I mean, nothing against her at all, and wish her all the well. But my point is like, we were together like 2.5 years. Like, what really is that in the grand scheme of things? When you have 10, 15, 20 years with somebody, right? Or invested in anything for that matter. So, but my ego at the time made me think that this was it. This is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? Sit back in the sails and sit back in the sunset and sail off. And, you could start seeing that how gradually, me not training anymore, me partying excessively, me thinking that my shit don't stink, all these things quickly declined and led to ultimately me getting arrested and locked up. And another side story, man, that when, I was so fucking mad with Matt and bitter because he fired me on speakerphone. I was madder than hell about that. I was like, man, I've been in your business for, this amount of time, and we, share birthday gifts and kids and all that shit, and you don't got the decency to fucking shake my hand and fire me the right way. And when I came home, he was working out at the gym, and and then I would hear like people talk shit and people say this, and I was super sensitive to everything. People saying I'm a snitch, and I'm like, fuck am I snitching? I'm next door with the Cody department. We both got locked up together. Like, give me a fucking break. Like, we both got sentenced together. Not Anyway, um, so it was like, all these things had me ultra sensitive to what people were saying. Obviously Matt would vent his frustrations, it would get back to me. And man, I'll tell you what, I was fucking madder than hell at him. And I seen him out at the gym, and when I got out and I changed my life, and he would try to talk to me, and I'd brush him off. I'd brush him off. I would just not act like he was, even speaking to me. You know what I mean? I'd give him very short answers, and just like that, I had a reason to be angry because he fired me. And he spoke to me another time, and I was like, asked me about my family. I was like, yeah, whatever, thanks, yo, cool. And I'm not in the streets anymore. I'm supposed to be changing my life, but I was so bitter because I felt that he treated me like a second class citizen. And then we got over to this gym one day, and I'm with my daughter, and we're in the ring. We're in the ring fixing the ropes. Me and my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter. And I look over the gym, and I see him walk in. He's across the gym, and they had the equipment up there. He's not in my gym. He's in the fitness side. He's working out. And I don't know if he was with his daughter and his wife or something. But I looked over, and I looked back at my daughter. And I looked back at him, and it hit me like a fucking ton of bricks, man. God had his way of making me feel like a very, very weak person and humble person. I'm looking at my kid helping me fucking build this business that I'm putting blood, sweat, tears, and everything into, as I see the guy that I completely lied to about my whole lifestyle, right? And he's doing the same thing. And I got the audacity to be mad because he fired me on speakerphone. I'm lucky he even did that. And it just hit me so hard, man. Then obviously it hit me with how I responded to him and reacted to him and all these things. And I just, man, I had to apologize, dude. So I got a chance to apologize to him and tell him how sorry I was and how, like, foolish I was of the way that I acted. And I don't know, it was just it was one of those things where, like, you think that you're developed, but then you get humbled all the time if you've got that white belt mentality. And it never dawned on me what his family and the fears and the embarrassment and the shame that they went through by my actions, right? And I'm the one potentially saying, I'm mad, like, I'm upset. And then it didn't dawn on me, I never even told the guy I was sorry. Like, I never apologized for my actions, not just the way I reacted, the actions, and it got me in that place in the first place. And I'm looking at my little 12-year-old daughter's helping me build a makeshift ring for my business and my gym and our livelihood. And I look over him and I think about how many times his daughter's been in there doing the same thing. Like, Jesus, man. But I felt that was worth saying, you know what I mean? And if I'm putting too much of your business out here, you know what I mean, man, I apologize again. But I feel like that's a story that needs to be said because of the lack of humility that I had and the honorable thing that he did. And he was a great mentor, great man. I hold him in high regards to this day just for, what he's done for me and showed me and taught me, and still continues to communicate with me and send me DMs and stuff like that. It's a great thing. It's truly forgiveness at its finest part. But anyway, moving forward, I'm getting all these signs that are being shown to me, but I'm ignoring them, and then I have to go to jail to learn that I should have took action and just quit selling drugs, in a hole. My whole life got turned upside down. Everything got put, my girl, my fiance at the time, she decided that it wasn't for her. My kids were not being, raised in my house by me. Their mother was now a single mother, basically, because I'm state property. My cousin's living in my house and, doing the best he can to keep that going, but, not living up to my standards. You know what I mean? I lost a business. I mean, dude, you name it, it all hit me. And the comeback story is always greater. Yes, all that. But the relevance of all this, right? As I'm looking out of this window for days upon days of what am I going to do with my life, I finally get the slap in the face that I should not have put myself into, to say, hey, you are meant for something bigger, motherfucker. You weren't wrong about that. You are meant for something greater, but your ass needed to shake the weight and get rid of the cancers that were in your life so that you could proceed to do God's work or my work or your work, whatever you want to chalk it up to. I'm not going to get religious on you, but I think that I'm doing God's work. My faith makes me believe, as a person who believes in Jesus Christ, that's my purpose. My purpose is to help people and make everybody be there for others. The minute Branden starts making it about Branden, I lose it all. I lose it all. That's why my second core value is lead by serving. I have to serve my people, you people, everybody, so that Branden can stay free and have his freedom and have his family and have the things and the luxuries of life. And the signs were always apparent, you know what I mean? So when I came home, my record was 2-4-1, so I was a losing amateur fighter. I had no credentials. You know the story. I had no jiu-jitsu belts, no karate belts, no MMA belts. It was just, I'd never even been to a jiu-jitsu studio at that point. It was always, this this backyard type training type shit, garage type stuff. And, I just started showing up, man. Show up to the gym, show up for people. Started reading, started listening to podcasts, right? Started going to self-help seminars, to conferences, started going and started therapy, you know what I mean? And put myself into a place where, I could get professional strategies and professional perspectives and tips and things that would help me, be a better human. And I just put people first, man. And what happened was I didn't know how to run a business. I knew nothing about podcasting. I knew nothing about running the gym. I knew nothing about marketing. I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nothing about speaking on stages. I knew nothing about training people, coaching people, developing fighters. None of this shit, man. I knew nothing. I only knew what my little teeny, tiny egotistical perspective knew about doing these things. And what came from the benefits of this is I started developing laws of attractions and developing disciplines. And I started developing these key things for personal growth, personal development, to help me be able to be a better person, right? To help me be a better leader, to be a better father, to be a better manager, owner, all these things that I got my hands involved in. And it helped me give a better way of talking to you guys, And again, I wing this whole fucking episode, whether you like this episode or not, right? This episode, we got a last minute cancellation. I really didn't have anything I wanted to discuss, but I came up with this episode basically all because I feel the need that this story would help you guys or help someone out here develop and give you hope to make a couple of moves in a couple of places of action. So why I say that, it's not because I'm so cool and so awesome I can talk on stage. No, it's because that's what helps me grow. I got to serve you guys. I got to serve people. I got to take action on what I've done. But all of these little key components, even when I was, a drug dealer saying I needed to get in shape, not knowing what I started, small hinges swing big doors, folks. A little spark can be the blaze to the things that, your life can change. And now, dude, I got a pretty fucking good life. Is it stressful? Yes. Is there a lot of work? Yes. Is there ups and downs? Yes. Is there all the things that absolutely? It's a difficult life, but it's pretty fucking good. It's pretty fulfilling. Yesterday was Mother's Day, and I got to take all the women. My mother couldn't make it, but she was invited to. But I got to take all of my favorite women out to dinner and celebrate them. I felt like I was the winner. It was my ex-wife who's been in the trenches with me for 30 years. My current wife who's been in the trenches with me for 10 years. My oldest daughter and my grandson, my middle daughter and my granddaughter. We went to my youngest daughter's work, and she served us and got to make money and have fun with us. At Cactus Taverna, those guys have been great to us, great to me, big supporters to the gym. And my son Tyrion was there, and we got all of these amazing just memories and times, and it was so great. I get to do that. I get blessed by getting to do that. Had I done that maybe 15 years ago, that experience would just been throw money at it and make it about Branden. I know I would have been like that. Throw money at it and talk about me the whole time and try to tell everybody how to live and try to tell everybody what they need to do and all these things. Instead, I got to sit back and just enjoy listening to everybody talk and roast me and all the things. It was a blessing. And that's one of many things that I get to do on a daily basis because of the work that I do every single day. It's not the big home runs and the grand slams that make the changes. It's the base hits, guys. Getting up the bat and swinging the bat. And then the strikeouts even are beneficial too. It's all of those things where you get up and you swing the bat just to get on base, and you get on base to score. and they add up, base hit after base hit after base hit after base hit after base hit. And then you get a home run, or you get a triple, or you get a double, you get something big where you drive and runs home. Those are your wins, right? That make those base hits pay off and feel really good. But it's really the base hits every single day that are moving the needle. And something I learned from another good friend of mine, Branden Hudson, if you get up to bat enough and swing the bat, you're bound to get a hit. So if you're sitting back waiting, not wanting to get up to the batter's box and swing the bat, and you're waiting for this something, nothing's going to happen. What did Michael Jordan say, or Wayne Gretzky say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, for me, the takeaways from this episode would be, look, get your body moving. Like it's proven, research has proven that you must move your body. Especially nowadays, where we're just trapped in cubicles, trapped in offices, trapped inside. You know what I mean? I say trapped because we're trapped to listen to this podcast, or listen to our phone, or watch social media, or play video games, or all these things. We're stuck and we're not moving. Our bodies were never meant to stay stuck and not moving. You need the sunlight. You need the outdoors. You need the nighttime. You need these things. Get your body moving and start looking at the cancers in your life. What is in my life that's not serving me? What am I doing that is not serving me? And I promise you, the first thought that pops into your head when you ask yourself that question is the number one thing. You're gonna have a thought. Majority of you are gonna have a thought that's gonna pop in your head, and then you're gonna have a second thought that's gonna take you away from that first thought, because you don't want to face the fact that that's probably what you need to cancel. Need to get out of your body. Need to get out of your life. Excuse me. So. And I'll tell you, even powerful tool, and you might have heard of this. There's a thing called a pen and paper. You can actually write a list down of the things that you want removed from your life, and have accountability in front of you, saying, you know what? I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to quit cussing. I'm going to quit raising my voice in front of my son or my wife. I'm going to, whatever it is for you, you can do it. You can do it. Society loves a great comeback story. Society loves people that come and beat the odds. And if there's anything that I've done and you could take away from my life, I've beaten and continue to beat the fucking odds. That's one thing I'm very proud of. I'm an underdog. I beat the odds. So, you get moving your body. You eliminate the cancers in your life, the things that you're doing that are causing you harm, or causing the people around you harm. And then get yourself into places that are uncomfortable and that you're not used to, and stick to them. Start listening to content and writing and taking action on the content. Not, there's nothing wrong with some of these podcasts or some of the things you guys want to listen to, but you need something that's going to actually fucking teach you something and give you actionable items. Too many of these, online influencers trying to tell you how to run a business, never ran one. Too many of these online people trying to tell you how to live your life, how to raise kids, don't have any. Too many of these marriage professionals who've been divorced 5 times. You know what I mean? Like 3 times. No, you need to listen to content that you can actually are from people that are actually doing it and in the trenches with you, and have an open mind and can give you takeaways and give you stuff. Get into rooms like that. Get into places like that. Push yourself to be uncomfortable. Guys, a lot of things can change in an amount of time of a year, 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. A lot of things can change. 10 years ago, did not get to see Mother's Day. 10 years ago, I did not get to see Mother's Day. The mothers in my life, my mother, my grandmother, they had to know that their son was in jail and their grandson was in jail. Yeah, that's not a good thing. And that's the change that can happen in 10 years. I can now take my family out to dinner and celebrate them and enjoy their time, where 10 years ago I was incarcerated. So, those are some of the quick key takeaways that I think. And I'm going to sell it with this. I'm going to sell a shameless plug. Get into combat sports. You want a fucking uncomfortable life? You want something? I have a young lady right now. She started training with me about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. She started training with me. She was a college kid. She was in here. She was struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression. She was struggling a little bit in her life. Wonderful, beautiful human being. And in a week and a half, I get to go to her graduation ceremony because she's now passed the bar and going to become a lawyer, and not just any lawyer. I believe a military criminal lawyer in JAG. I'm not quite sure. Don't let me butcher, but this girl's amazing. And I'm not saying it's because of me. I'm just saying because she got into combat sports. She's fucking 7 years later invites me. Me? Who the fuck am I? Right? But that's what that did for her. That experience did for her. Relationship that we built through that art did for her. It helped her keep some of the core values and some of the things and lessons she learned to become a successful person in life. So anyway, get into combat sports. It's going to be great for you. It's going to be beneficial for you. It's going to give you what you need, maybe not what you want. But that'll wrap it up, man. I apologize if you guys, if it wasn't the norm. I'm glad you guys stuck with me if you stuck in this long, but I appreciate you guys. I hope that helped. I hope that can give you value. And if you know somebody who can get value from that, please give it to them, share it, let them hear it. You know what I mean? All we're trying to do is help. Until next time, guys, what are you doing today to become a champion?